Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm sitting here trying to stay as silent as I can, and my phone keeps going off. I'm looking down, I'm like, shit. And then I start to write something, and I can hear the pencil like cracking against the paper. So I'm like, fuck, that's going to blow all of our silence.
The software's got to at least, it can't be that sensitive to it. Can it?
Yeah, it's pretty smart overall.
All right, fair enough.
So anyway, this is episode 58. And Dave, what are we talking about this week?
There's a movie came out fairly recently.
Shit, that's right. Yeah, that Solo movie.
Oh, I was thinking Deadpool 2. We're not going to talk about Deadpool?
No, not this week. We'll have to save that for another time.
All right, fair enough. I haven't seen it yet anyway, so. Yeah, Solo. Shit. It's Solo time. Those of you who are the absolute loyal listeners have already seen a portion of our reaction to the Solo movie that we did the day after we saw it. We did it for YouTube purposes. And while Jason was still at home, unfortunately not in the Starkiller Studios because the technology that Jason brought with him to Biloxi also inhibited us from being able to use the studio. So I think it worked out better anyway. That way we're not like breaking up the time that he had with his family any more than we already did. So
yeah,
it worked out. But yeah, if you watched our little pre-game for this, then thank you.
Yep, and you got some exclusive stuff in there that you're not going to hear on this episode of the podcast because that video that we made on YouTube, in fact, the last two videos we made on YouTube, strictly for YouTube. So go subscribe and watch those if you haven't already. And yeah, so, and this is probably going to be a two-parter. I think you'll see it in the title that this is going to be our Solo review part 1. We're going to get through our full thoughts on the movie this episode, but I'm sure there are some details that we're going to miss that will bleed over into next week's episode. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff we're going to want to talk about because in addition to our initial impressions of Solo, we're also going to be talking about the box office from the weekend because we're recording this on Tuesday, the 29th. So the box office numbers have come out and there's going to be a lot to unwrap with that stuff. So we're going to talk about that this week as well. And before we get into any of that, Dave, you ready to hop into our week real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to make this quick because we do have a lot to get to with Solo. For me, as Dave mentioned at the top of the show, I went home for the weekend. First time I've been home in 3 months. Saw my wife, my kids. It was fucking great. I couldn't have asked for a better weekend, honestly. Dave was gracious enough to pick me up at the airport after midnight on Friday morning, technically, when I first landed. And then I don't know, how much sleep did you get that night before we went and saw the movie?
I think I got a fair amount, I guess. I don't know. It's tough to say. I was still pretty tired. This whole retirement thing, with my beard and waking up later, it's still stuff to get used to. So I may have still gotten up at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning and been a little bit more tired, but no, it was good. It's unfortunate because what we should have done is we should have had like an Instagram live session or a YouTube session in the car. We talked about this in the YouTube thing that we did, but we had a great, immediate, as soon as he got in the car, we started talking about some expectations for Solo and being excited and everything. So,
and the stupid Boba Fett movie, not movie, announcement, not announcement.
So it was good stuff. So, but yeah, it was a great weekend though. It was, Memorial Day weekend. And I think, anybody who follows us on social media, I know I tried to pay my respects for the day that it's meant to, for all our fallen comrades, let's not forget that we are veterans, and that's one of the big things for us. And I know a lot of our listeners are veterans, so we all have known somebody and lost somebody at some point or another. So, that's what Memorial Day was all about. So.
That's right.
Hopefully everyone took a moment while they were, enjoying their barbecues and enjoying their time with their family and thanked everyone who came before us that made that possible. So that's enough about that.
That's great. But yeah, I did do a little bit of Star Wars stuff on the plane. I downloaded a bunch of comics. I read some comics on the flight down and back home. And I also read a good portion of the second Darth Bane book. So I think I'm about halfway through the second Darth Bane book now.
Nice.
And I read, and Bronco Fett, you'll be very happy to know, he's already in the chat, by the way. You'll be happy to hear.
Look at the chat.
I read some of the Poe Dameron comics. So, and we'll get into more details in this stuff later, but I started the Poe Dameron comics and the new Vader 2017 series. So we'll talk about those at a later time.
I like the Bronco Fett starts the chat immediately with a carrot. That's very good. Very good.
Yes. Oh, and speaking of which, that's a very good segue into my next part. I cleared the air with Mrs. Martin. So we had a discussion about why she was so upset with me.
Don't call her Mrs. Martin. She's going to hate that. She's going to hate it. I'm just.
Oh, hey,
just go
one good
Kathleen.
turn deserves another, right?
Oh, okay. Sure.
I wore this shirt just for her, by the way. So and she's not even home, so I'm very upset.
Well, she'll see it. It'll be on the YouTube feed.
Yes, but no, we cleared the air in the theater before we saw the movie. Everything's cool. Some simple misunderstandings.
There was never an issue. It was all just about busting Jason's balls. So
yes, and that will continue no matter what, air cleared or not. She's already been poking the bear quite a bit in regards to shirts and carrots and whatnot. So. I won't get into too much more detail about my week as we want to get into Solo. Dave, you got anything else to add besides your Diet Coke pouring?
I'm thirsty.
There's a chat, David Schmuck.
Yeah. Wait. What?
Has he been watching this whole time and never chatting, not realizing there was a chat?
No, I think that was more of a reaction to my reaction to. Oh shit! I better get on the chat. I'm supposed to be following that.
Gotcha.
So, are we on to my week? My weekend? It's so I'm representing my going back to college shit. You know, Embry Riddle. The VA is putting me back into school to make me more marketable. So they're gonna pay me money to go back to school and pay for the school. So who can complain? Although being 40 and going back to college is like it's kind of the worst. So
yeah, I'm in that boat right now.
Look, anybody, military people out there that have done any like instructing or anything like that, you're used to being the instructor, not necessarily receiving instruction. And Jason will tell you because he had to get instruction and evaluations from me. But he knows I can be a real prick. And I'm already in this class, like in these classes going like, oh my God, I want to just like, I was sitting in a classroom with this person. I'd be the guy raising my hand going like, you're already contradicting the syllabus. What exactly are we going to need to be doing? And why are you doing it this way? Because this is stupid. So great. I'm gonna have a great time going back to school.
Oh, I'm sure.
There should be a whole Rodney Dangerfield like thing. I'm not at that fucking old yet, despite the gray and the beard.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started school. So I'm working on that. So we got this knockout pool, right? That I think I've talked about before in the podcast. You know, bought this cheap pool. I actually decided to buy it while I was flying on Jason's Finney flight, you know, years ago. So what was that? 2 years ago now?
Yeah,
15?
almost 2 years. Yeah.
Or 16. When was that?
It was 16. It was 16. It was like summer 16.
Was it summer? Or I thought it was like March. No, it was summer. It had to have been because I bought a fucking pool. Anyway, so I'm looking down at the screen like he's like a little tiny thing right there. So anyway, so I buy this pool. I put it up. I didn't we threw dirt down on the ground. I'm like, it's level. And then filled the fucker up with water. You know, my father-in-law and I, but we built this deck to go around it. It's real nice little setup. And it left it up for a year and winterized it the whole bit. And then this past year, I decided instead of winterizing, I'd just take it down because I wanted to find something on Craigslist that somebody was throwing away that I basically could go pick up. Right. Which didn't happen. So, but either way, I'm like, I'm going to level it this year because it was like the way it was going, there was like 6 inches difference between one side of the pool to the other for where the water was. And that was 6 inches was basically, if the pool collapsed, it would have all went to my back door and flooded out my fucking house. So
yeah, it's not good.
I'm like, so we're leveling it this year. So what I would call the big dig started Saturday on the hottest day of the fucking week. It's like my wife's like going out there and saying, oh, let's mess around and do this and go out. And, you know, she's doing all the little hinting things to get me to go out like side and start working on this because we want to have the pool up. Yeah. And with the best intentions.
Sure. I'm sure she's gonna love your impression of her too.
That's my generalized impression for her. Like it could be for anybody.
But you specified her, so
any woman, I should say. That's not for anybody. Although maybe it's some guy. Anyway,
squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so I dug this giant fucking 16-foot in diameter hole in the yard and blew out my fucking wrist and got, you know, blisters on blisters. just fucking miserable. Again, it was hot as fuck. And then the next day, it like went overcast and didn't get any higher than 70 degrees, and it was kind of like that for the rest of the weekend. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ! I quite literally, the hottest moment of the weekend is when I decide to go out there and be a human fucking backhoe, and it's just miserable. So actually worked on it some more today after I saw Solo this morning. Yeah. I bought tickets last night before I went to bed. I'm like, you know what? I'm caught up on homework and stuff. I think I'm going to go and see a morning showing of Solo. That way, when we do the podcast, I'll at least have seen it a second time. You didn't get an opportunity to go, right?
So I'm going this weekend. So a couple of my classmates wanted to go this weekend because none of them have seen it yet. So instead of going last night, I decided, fuck it, I'll just wait until the weekend.
Fair enough. So
I've only seen it once.
I saw it twice. I may see it again. I don't know. We'll talk about that more later. But definitely. That's pretty much all I've had time to do, you know, is get ready for, summer. Been working in the yard, do the class, try and get into some sort of battle rhythm for school. That's the toughest part, especially doing it all online because I found things for me to do while I wasn't doing anything. And now I have something to do and still have those other things that I was occupying myself with. So some time management stuff going to come into play here.
Yeah.
But that's, I'll figure it out. I got time. Sure.
Yeah.
He says with no panic at all in his face.
Not at all. So yeah, let's start talking about this movie. First, we'll start with our general experience on Friday night. We didn't see it the preview Thursday night because I was flying and it just wouldn't have worked out. So we made our reservations, took our whole family, as we mentioned in previous episodes, 5 members of my family, 4 members of your family. We all met up at the theater for the show. It was a good time. And this was the first time I'd seen a movie in that particular theater, this AMC theater, in years, because we've mostly been going to that one in the Morristown area. Right. But my wife, Kristen, loves this AMC theater. She thinks it's the best. She thinks the seats are better, overall better experience. So she finally convinced me to see Solo at this theater instead of our normal spot. But overall, what did you think of the AMC Prime? Because it was AMC Prime non-3D with the rumbling seats and all that shit.
Mm-hmm. I think it was not as loud as the RPX that you like that RPX experience.
I do.
I think they did make an effort to with the seat rumbling and stuff like that. It wasn't loud. Like loud to me is, if it's loud, that's too much.
Right.
But it was definitely, you had good sound quality. The rumbling was, I didn't notice it. It wasn't extraneous. Like when we saw Force Awakens that one time.
You'll never forgive me for that, will you?
Oh my God. It was so fucking loud. It was loud to the point of I just basically staggered out of there. It was so fucking loud. Although I will say, when we went and saw Last Jedi in there, and it wasn't as bad the second time, so maybe somebody fucking went back and said, "Hey, can we take it down off of 11?" So I think the theater experience was good. You got us basically a whole row for our family to all be there. We did a little Instagram thing, I think. No, we did. Or did we?
No, it was YouTube Live.
Yeah, we did YouTube Live. That's right. It was through my phone. We just did it holding the phone up, but it actually came out pretty decent. So
Yeah, it's a little dark, but I mean, we were in a movie theater before.
Exactly. We were waiting for the brighter shit to show up so they could actually show off like the new Teespring t-shirts, which we'll talk about later. Teespring.com/stores/all things SW pod. Yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience. I'm an AMC guy anyway. I got one right around the corner from my house. I mean, I could literally walk there if I wanted to. So nice. Using the Stubbs account and I had credit on my Stubbs account. So like the popcorn, I have the Premier Stubbs thing. So you get like your own line, and when you buy a regular size, it's always upgraded. In fact, this morning,
soda.
Yeah. Well, and it worked out great because it was like regular size soda, but you got a large for the price of the small. So
yep.
I think it's worth it. I went this morning. I basically had to convince the girl, like, listen, just give me the small bag of popcorn. I don't need the giant tub of popcorn. I'm not going to eat it. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't need to eat a giant bag of fucking popcorn.
You would have eaten it if she'd given it to you.
You know what? I couldn't. I couldn't even eat half the bag.
Oh wow.
No, I did eat half the bag. Let's not talk about that. That was breakfast.
I'm sure you drank the whole Diet Coke though.
You're fucking right. I did. God damn. But I went to the bathroom twice. That's the advantage of going to the movie like for the second time. Like you kind of know when you can go to the bathroom. And on our viewing on that Friday night, I actually had to go once, and I realized I didn't really miss anything.
Yeah.
So it worked out. But yeah, I liked it. I think the AMC Prime is a good rival to your RPX experience. And
maybe next time we'll go to the AMC that's near you, and you won't have to drive as far.
You know what? The one that's right near me is not as it's not as nice. It's a little it's a little bit more rundown. Like they don't. Okay. I saw it in 3D, just because I didn't need to. I could have went and just saw the digital show, but I just wanted to see it in 3D, see if there was any difference. Really wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Bronco Fett said the IMAX 3D was good.
Oh, holy shit. Again, the chat. There's a lot of chat in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, fuckheads. Who's this person that's trying to get into the Hangouts conversation?
I don't know. I think it's just some douchebag. I think he's the guy that gave us the thumbs down on the video too.
Is it really?
Yeah. Somebody gave us a thumbs down. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, fuck off. Yeah, that was it. AMC Prime, it's good if it's near you. I would recommend it. Like I said, the Deptford 8 that's around me, it's an older theater, and I don't think they've gotten to that level. Maybe they renovate and get the Prime in there. Because even the seat I sat in today was like, it had like cracked, like the armrest was cracked and everything. It was one of the first ones to do the reserve seating. So
yeah.
But
all right, anyway. Never mind. Then we won't go to that one. Fuck it.
Exactly. That's why I'm telling you.
So, all right. Do we even care about doing a non-spoiler section at this point? I mean, anybody who's listening to this, I would imagine, has already seen the movie, or they'll wait. Do we care about non-spoilers before we get into spoilers?
All I'm going to say is that it was good. I recommend seeing it. That's the non-spoiler section. Like I enjoyed it. Dave Martin approves of this movie, without caveats, go and see the movie and it's enjoyable. I know there's a lot of people that didn't like it, and we'll get there. But
well, you know what though? You know what's surprising? You say that, but I've only heard one negative review from everybody that I've been in contact with since the movie came out. And it's from longtime listener Walter Whitko, who also has his own podcast. So if you want to hear his side of the review, check out the Parking Lot Review. Subscribe to his podcast, because he wasn't as big of a fan of Solo as we were.
So
to put it mildly.
Yeah, and I think at this point, let's just jump right into this. We're just going to jump right into spoilers from this point forward. That way we don't have to worry about censoring ourselves. Yeah, spoiler alert, all of you. The big thing is from Walter Wicko and from listening to his podcast, I'll say that he's been unhappy since, like, he was okay with The Force Awakens, and then has been unhappy ever since. It seems like him and his co-host both, they didn't like Rogue One. I got the impression that they didn't like Rogue One. They definitely didn't like Last Jedi, and they hated this fucking movie. And it's, I'll go on record as saying I don't think a lot of it is justified. I think look, it's an opinion, so a lot of it is based on personal preference. So,
sure, and he has the right to his opinion. We're not going to, dog him.
Exactly. Yeah, listen to his podcast. You may feel the same way about some things, and it's definitely here other points of view. Like, ours is not the definitive. Yeah. We are the definitive podcast. Don't you forget it. However,
yes.
There's definitely other podcasts out there that have. I just realized I only had one ear on. Back to my radio operator days.
Yeah, I'm sure I sound much better in stereo too.
Oh yeah, it's definitely better. So he had a problem with the length of the movie. He felt like it was too long.
That was one of my negative points too, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, coming out of the theater, I think that was a handful of people talked about how long it was, and there was a lot about the individual actors playing the different roles and how those were utilized. So I don't know, that's again, subscribe to his podcast. I think it's hosted by the enemybase.com.
Yes. Yeah, that's his overall website
which
network.
Is great friggin' website name. I love that.
Yeah.
And go to the Enemy Base, subscribe to his podcast, give him a listen, and compare and contrast. I'd love to get Walter on, because I think the overall, because Jason and I actually liked the Solo movie. I'd be curious to get a kind of a contrary view to what we saw. So
sure. And for me, just real quick, I've only seen it the one time so far, and I think I need a second viewing to decide where this kind of fits in the Star Wars ranking for me. But as we were watching it, and as soon as the movie was over, I'm sitting there and thinking, yeah, I liked it. Definitely not an issue for me at all. As opposed to when I saw Last Jedi, and I'm sitting there, I'm watching the movie. As the movie's going, I'm like, I'm not digging this. And then when the movie was over, I'm just like, I don't think I liked that. So right away, I liked Solo far better than The Last Jedi. And we've talked Last Jedi to death.
Right. And my daughter made a good point coming out of the movie theater. She said that, she talked about our expectations, how our expectations were lower for the Solo movie, which is 100% correct. I mean, we were definitely downplaying our expectations for what we were going to see in this movie. And ultimately, could that have affected our enjoyment level? Perhaps, but I think for the better. I think when when it really comes down to it, you want to go into the movie with kind of it being clean. And oh, by the way, it's a spin-off movie. It's not part of the timeline. It's not part of the trilogy. So we're not talking about the things that are affecting the greater outcome of everything else. So we'll get into details about things because they did manage to have some interaction with Legends material, with some things that are already canon. So I was surprised by that. I wasn't expecting this movie to try and even be as deep as that. I expected this to be a very, very shallow movie. So one thing that we can talk about, we talked about in our little YouTube short that we did, the Keeper of the Holocron, Leland Chee, right?
Yeah.
Leland Chee.
Well, he's one of them, but he is the Keeper of the Holocron.
Right. That's his Twitter handle. If you want to see what's going on with the Star Wars universe, follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Matt Martin is one of the other guys. Yep. They both were fairly active on Twitter after the movie came out to talk about, kind of clear things up with the timeline, because that's definitely one of the questions that I had coming out of the movie is where do we fall right now, on the Star Wars timeline? And they were very specific, this And, you know, this falls in between Episode 3 and Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
So, and which makes sense because of, you know, spoiler alert, the, you know, Rebels references directly at the end, with Darth Maul and his appearance. So it definitely, we kind of had to go to I had to go to the internet to see like where we were talking about in the timeline, because it wasn't evident. And one of the things that we've already talked about is I think that it's kind of like an age thing. Like, we were expecting it to be like a longer, I don't know, gestation period for like what Han Solo developed and this legendary character, how he developed it. Like, we expected it to be longer than just, you know, the incident on Corellia, which gets him off planet. And then 3 years later, he runs into this band, that ultimately, you know, gets him out of the off world, away from the Imperials, and all that. So anyway, I forget where I was going with that. Huh?
What? Scroll.
Did I have a stroke? What?
Yeah. So, and I think, what did we decide, that this takes place 4 years before A New Hope? Like, the end of this is like 4 years before?
7. It's
7 years. It's 7 years. Okay.
It's 7 years.
Makes a little more sense.
There was a CNET article that I referenced in our little thing, and it actually broke down the timeline pretty well. And their thing was basically what we see at the end of Solo, when he's saying, "Hey, we're going to go to Tatooine and we're going to you know, hook up with this cartel and start working with them." That basically like started the clock to when we would get to A New Hope. So they based on their timeline, it said 7 years. So I'm willing to go with that.
Yeah. And you
without
mentioned
doing my own research.
Yeah, you'd mentioned Leland Shee and Matt Martin and all them. You know, now that the movie's been out for a while and people have been picking apart like all the Easter eggs and stuff, you know they had to have been heavily involved in the production of this movie, because I guarantee you Lawrence Kasdan and fucking his douchebag son have no clue about most of this old Legends material stuff. And it was referenced everywhere. Bronco Fett posted in our private Facebook group today, I think it was him, the Star Wars Explained video that goes into all of the hidden Easter eggs and all this shit. They went deep into a lot of this old Legends material and brought a lot of it into the current canon just with this movie. And it was a lot. And I guarantee you those two guys didn't know shit about most of this, nor Ron Howard for that matter. So I think the story group had a lot to do with that. And it's Ray Park did not do the voice of Maul. He is only the face. The voice was done by the same guy who did the voice for Maul in Rebels and Clone Wars. Sorry, but I'm responding to some stuff in the chat.
Wait a minute, what?
And some people who are posting misinformation in the chat.
He asked who voiced Ray Maul.
Ray Park does not do the voice for Darth Maul. He didn't do him in Episode 1, and he didn't do him in Solo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different guy, because they got a guy with a British accent to do the voice for Maul.
Fair enough. All I'm saying is,
like this.
Ear itches. That was nice for the audience. No, because I stayed, and like after you said, we're jumping way to the end here, but I still you had said that was Ray Park as Darth Maul.
The visual. Yeah,
and I'm sitting there like, because I was looking at the guy going, and like, and then you name dropped, and they're like, oh no, I know, I've seen Ray Park, I've met him, blah blah blah, whatever.
Don't be jealous, man.
And then I waited to the end of the credits, and it didn't give a voice credit. It just said Maul and then Ray Park. So I didn't know that it was a different voice in Solo. So
yeah, this was a thing even back with Episode 1. And yeah, spoiler alert: Darth Maul was in fucking Solo. We'll get to that, but yeah, he didn't voice Darth Maul even back in Phantom Menace. It was Ray Park in the fucking makeup, but they got some other asshole to do the voice, because if you listen to Ray Park talk, he does not sound menacing or evil or anything. He's got a very kind of high-pitched, sort of squeaky voice. So would not have fit. And then, so they got the guy who voiced Darth Maul in both Clone Wars and Rebels to do the voice for Solo. But it was Ray Park in the fucking makeup again, which I thought was great. But we're jumping way ahead here.
We'll get there.
Thanks for taking us off the rails, Bronco Fett.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Stay on point.
Stay on target.
So, all right. So let's kind of get into this a little bit, into some of the more details of the movie.
Did you wash that shirt? Yeah, let's get into this. Did you wash the shirt?
No, it's bad luck to wash shirts.
So
you wash your t-shirts? No, who washes their clothes?
Scott Rasmussen apparently washes his clothes. I was curious.
He's doing it wrong. So I like how you started the notes with Han and Qi'ra in the ghetto.
Right.
And yeah, it basically starts off, they're kind of part of some weird underground crime thing on Corellia, mostly just to survive and stay alive. I don't know if they're like kind of indentured servants to these guys. Didn't really pick up on all the
based on like the description. So one thing we didn't put in the notes, and let's talk about it now. The scroll. There wasn't a scroll.
No, but they did something very interesting.
Yeah, so you had a traditional, you see the Lucasfilm, like, come up there and, it does a little dance. And then you had a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, which was fucking great. Even this morning when I watched it again, I was like, ooh, yes. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And then in the same font, it started, instead of a scroll, it did like text over.
Yeah.
And was describing like basically what was happening at the current time with the Empire and the other thing. So very, very interesting how they decided to do that. Again, I liked it. Yeah, I had no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Rogue One, when they did their stuff, they also did something different. So cool that with the spin-offs they're choosing to do something a little bit different each time, and yet hold on to some of the the things that we love, and get us excited when we're watching a Star Wars movie. It's a great way to tee up a Star Wars movie, to be honest with you. Is if you want to get the crowd into it, start with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's a great way to start a movie and like know that you're watching a Star Wars movie.
Yep. And yeah, it was different, but it was familiar the way they did this new text and the description of everything that was going on. It was the
same blue font as a long time ago, and that it did like it showed into Corellia and had like the solo "How you doing?" That they just kind of did a fly through, and the music started, and you get down and it goes dark, and the one thing that's different that I think is different for us as Star Wars watchers is you don't get the traditional like pan into the planet. You had that shot of him trying to hotwire this car or land speeder or whatever, and it's like darkness until you see this like flashing of him trying to hotwire the thing, which actually I thought was a pretty cool visual element to start the movie. And then it jumps right into an action sequence where he's being chased. This movie does not fall short as far as action goes.
Yeah,
I think they did a great job of there's only a few moments where I think it's slowed down to a point where maybe they might have lost you, or you could take a bathroom break. But for the most part, like there was plenty of action. So I wasn't disappointed as far as that one.
Yeah, and there were parts too I mentioned before. It did feel kind of long. My kids all complained about the length after the movie. They all liked it overall, but they all complained about the length. They all thought it felt too long. So I don't know what happened there. It's going to take subsequent viewings for me to kind of figure out where the slowdowns happened and what they could have done to make it better. But I mean, overall, it didn't take away from the generic experience. Now, I want to talk about Qi'ra, because I don't know what your thoughts on her going into this movie were, but I thought, okay, she might be some sort of a love interest of Han, somebody he knew back on his home planet. But no, they are in like a full-blown relationship at the start of this movie. And she's kind of the driving force for him getting into all of these situations that he's getting in throughout the course of this movie. It's all about her. It's all about a broad, right? We mentioned this with the prequels. It ultimately ends up being all about a broad.
You can't say the word Star Wars without it fucking involving a broad.
Yeah. And I found that very unique, because that's not something I would have expected from his character. But I mean, it's Emilia Clarke. You look at her, I certainly wouldn't blame him for wanting to bone her every day for the rest of his life.
Right.
But it was not what I was expecting their relationship to be. Now, obviously things changed throughout the course of the movie between the two of them. But yeah, I did not expect to see him as just a dedicated romantic guy. He always puts on the front of not caring or just kind of, being Han about it.
You always thought that he would be more of a player, but then as things go along, he was. I think one of the things they tried to emphasize in this movie is that the Han Solo that's portrayed is not the guy. And
yes, and Kira brings that up in this.
Exactly. And that's, I went to take a leak at that part, in the trailer where it talks about the, I know who you really are type thing. And I'm like, I knew this was coming. I'm like, I'm going to go take a leak. I know how this ends. She actually says you're the good guy in this. And he really is. He is the good guy. He's always has the good intent, even though we're meant to see him portrayed as being some badass gangster type. He really isn't.
And he tries to play it off like, I don't give a shit about your revolution. Right, I ain't it for you, princess.
Right, exactly. And he does a good job of playing off that role. But in the meantime, in the back of his head, he's always going back for the man down. He's always doing the right thing, and he's always trying to win the heart of his girl. I mean, that's the whole thing. You can't fault this movie for having this being romanticized. And I think I've seen things on Facebook or over social media that are kind of are a little disappointed the fact that they try and overplay this romance. And I don't think they overplayed it at all.
Yeah, I don't dislike it.
I think that it made sense to what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
The one point I will make, when we're talking about Kira, the friggin' the jewelry slug that pops out of the fucking ground, whatever. It's Lord Proxima, I think is her. Yeah. She's the one who's controlling the all the kids in the ghetto. Steal shit from me, and I'll protect you from the Imperials that are living, controlling everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically, like you said, it's more like indentured servitude. And in that whole sequence with Proxima, she says to Kira, when Kira steps up to try and stop Han from getting shot, this lady Proxima says something. Damn it! I'm glad I at least caught you with the bottle. She says, we pulled you from the silo, and gave you someplace to stay. I am curious, what is the silo?
Yeah.
What is that? Because Kira ending up working for fucking Darth Maul, a Sith, at the end of this, this Crimson Dawn, and Bronco Fett brought it up, in that thing that he posted, and he actually mentioned in the chat about Crimson Dawn being mentioned before the new canon. I think in that there's a short YouTube that kind of goes into the Easter eggs, and it really hasn't been brought up except for a couple of references, but not really. This is our introduction to this Crimson Dawn. And symbology wise, Kira is wearing a necklace in the beginning when he meets her on the yacht that Darth Maul is wearing in that sequence.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's something that it's something you pick up on. It's like this half moon shape, medallion. It's
right. Well, is it the same symbol she had branded in her fucking wrist, or was that different?
Yeah, it was half of that.
Okay.
And he was basically wearing it as a necklace, and she had something similar on when Han runs into her again. So anyway, I'm curious as to what Kira's backstory is to get to the point in Corellia, and then obviously her and Han hook up, and they have their hey, let's get off this fucking planet and go be cool together.
Yeah, we'll elope and we'll get off this planet and we'll live happily ever after. And we might as well, because we've already bounced around a little bit, we might as well bring this up now since we're talking about Kira. And you mentioned, oh yeah, let's find out about her backstory. It's possible because she's not fucking dead. She survives this movie, which is another thing that blew my mind. like her whole plot point, everything about her character was a complete surprise to me. From the relationship with Han to, all right, so they're going to resolve this somehow. She's going to get fucking killed by the end. And she doesn't. She survives. She reports to Darth Maul. She's like, all right, I'm going to take this yacht now. And you know, we'll do our shit.
Well, again, and we're kind of jumping around, you know, if we're talking specifically about Qi'ra, I think that's one of the big, like the door kind of being swung open to a sequel.
Yes. Yeah. And that's how I felt leaving the theater. Was this seems like they made this movie with some sort of sequel or follow-up in mind. If not a Solo specific sequel, some sort of follow-up movie to close up some of these plot points, because there was a lot of shit that was left open that we just have no idea what the fuck's going on now.
Yeah, I agree. And which is I'm strangely okay with. I don't know if
I don't dislike that. It's just it's took me by surprise, which I guess if you're surprised by a movie like this that by all rights and purposes shouldn't have any surprises, because you know where all these fucking characters end up. It had a lot of surprising moments. So
right. I look again, expectations being lowered, or however you want to talk about it. It's the fact that I was not expecting any depth in this movie. I was expecting the kiddie pool version of a Solo movie, based on the shortened timeline for Ron Howard to have it, the lack of press until basically right at the Super Bowl. You know, so they only had a few months of actual advertising to give us a taste of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the fact that there was some depth and some things we were able to go into is fucking great. It's great. It's great to be able to walk out of that, be entertained, and still be able to have a Star Wars conversation. So
yeah, and actually want to see it again. So yeah, let's hit some of these other points, because one of the areas that I wasn't quite sure about, and I'm still not 100% happy with, is the whole fact that Han Solo's last name was given to him in this movie, was given to him by an Imperial when he went to go sign up for the Imperial Academy. A whole bunch of shit happens. He ends up fucking beelining it right to a recruiter, be like, I want to join the military. I'm going to be a pilot. And he's like, okay, what's your name? It's Han. Well, what's your last name? It's just Han.
Yeah, I don't. What's your family? And he's like, yeah. I don't have family.
And he's like, okay, so you're Solo. You're Han Solo.
Yeah,
so they retconned the whole Han Solo family, basically, because he had family. Solo was his family name in Legends. He had other family members that appeared throughout the course of Legends material, but that's all done now.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I wonder if, like, in the backstory, and maybe it's in some of the comics that we haven't gotten to yet. You know, I have stacks of these comics.
Yeah,
but you know, he alludes to the fact that his father was a shipbuilder, that his father worked on the YT 1300 line. You know, he basically he most likely worked on the Falcon. So,
right, which I like that.
That change in the story. It was interesting. Like, hey, if you're Corellian, you're either you're in this industry where you're working on these fucking ships, or you're basically a scumbag.
Yeah, so, it was like the old days in Detroit. Like, if you lived in Detroit, you worked for one of the auto companies.
Yeah, you worked for GM, you worked for fucking Ford. That's what you were doing.
Yeah.
So, it was really. It was interesting. It was an interesting way to go ahead and do that. Like, okay, we're going to put our dot, and this is where Solo comes from. Like, yeah. Okay. And then it was done. It wasn't a big fucking deal. It was like, okay, here's your fucking, I was a little bit disappointed, because I was hoping to get, here's your ticket to go fly, and then actually have him, you know, in Imperial, like, pilot uniform, going.
Yeah, like, I was expecting to see him in a TIE fighter outfit at least once. And I'm like, oh, Dave's gonna lose his shit.
Oh man. It would have been, I was like, that's, if you're talking about anticipating, like, you know, he's going to the fucking recruiter so he can like not get captured, basically. Like, he's already on the other side of the wall. He's gonna go fucking, you know, sign up for the Empire. And he's like, I'm gonna get them to make me a pilot. So he goes over there and he gets, okay, that's the Navy. Yeah, we're going to make you a pilot, sure enough. Like, typical recruiter fucking bullshit, right? Oh, yeah, what do you want to do? Oh, you want to fly airplane? Sure, let me get you signed up right here. Like, yeah, get on this spaceship, you know, and then we're going to get you flying. I really thought it was a clever transition. I noticed it more this morning. He said, we're going to get you flying. And in the next sequence, he's flying through the air because of a fucking like mortar blast or something. And
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it was fucking great. It was like the last thing he says is he takes the tickets like we're gonna get you flying in no time, and then it says 3 years later across the bottom, and Han is flying through the air and landing in like a fucking mud pit. It was a really good transition. And then it was one of those things that like they could have very easily have fucked that up. They could have done way worse with that and really tried to overdo it or overplay that hand. And instead they made it very simple. Like, here's the thing, there's this is how we're going to transition into that. And the next thing you know, boom, he's in fucking mud and he's wearing a non-standard for us Imperial fucking infantry outfit.
Yeah. It was, like you said, not standard. I would have expected to see him like a stormtrooper outfit for where he was, and there were stormtroopers there with him, but he was in some other garb. I guess they call it the Mud Trooper.
Yeah, and somebody posted. I want to say David Schmuck. I think David Schmuck posted. Like, there's 3 different stormtroopers now that came out of this. There was the one that was on the motorbike that fucking had got crashed in the chase sequence. Yep. Then you had the mud one that the Han was in, if he would have had the mask on and all that other shit. And then there was another one. It was the one that was on the train.
Yeah, with the fur coats.
Exactly. So what I thought was interesting, and I made the comment before, I think that Mud Trooper, I've seen that like that they had like I don't know if it was Ralph McQuarrie drawing or it was like just an anime version or whatever, but they had like a samurai stormtrooper that was in like the helmet like that with the like the goggles, kind of similar to what Rey had, like Rey's goggles, and then with like a leather helmet and like just some basic body armor. Which makes sense. Like, okay, here's our lowest level infantry guys, being part of Operation Human Shield. Go out there and fucking be in the front of this, where you have your more heavily armored guys are in the back. So I think there was some people that would talk about it was like, it just the expectation of, and why they didn't put him in a stormtrooper uniform, like a traditional one. I don't have a problem with it. I can, from being in the military, I think it was way easier to grasp that. Like, oh yeah, he hasn't made it to fucking the spot where he gets the full up armor and helmet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that he was soldiering for 3 years and still hadn't made it to that level, I mean, I think he was a bad soldier, honestly.
We'll get into some more of the details of this part later on, because there are some more expanded universe references and all that. But in the interest of time, gonna move this along, and I want to talk about Chewbacca, because this is the point where Han meets Chewbacca. Chewie we always knew from Legends material, Han had freed him from some sort of Imperial enslavement. In this, the way they're introduced is Chewie is still captive by the Imperials, but they're kind of using him in like almost like a Rancor pit. I thought it was a Rancor at first when they fucking threw Han down into this pit and you hear the growl. Right. But it was very quickly they let you know that it was Chewbacca that was in there. And this is how they met. So I want to get your opinions on this. And first, just the method that they meet, and then what did you think about Han speaking Wookiee? That was a little bit.
So it probably can come off as kind of hokey.
Yeah,
the way they did it. However, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. How he came about speaking Wookiee, who knows?
Yeah.
You figured Kashyyyk had long been enslaved by the Empire, coming across, such a specific language to be able to speak it. Okay. And the fact that that's the only time we've ever heard Han Solo speak Wookiee. And I doubt we'll ever hear it again.
Yeah.
Like, cause he spoke English to him immediately after that. So, excuse me. I think the conversation we had after the movie was, or I might've had it in the car with my family. I don't have a problem with that. It's kind of like if you're captured by the Russians and you know a few words while you're in a holding cell to get comfortable with your captor, like, hey, either you're going to be secretive about it and they're like, okay, I can listen to your conversation because I know your language, or you're going to be like, hey, I want to get closer to you so you don't kill me. Yes. So I'm going to use some of your language with you. And then, especially with something like Wookiee, could you imagine like holiday special style if they just started for 20
minutes?
I would have fucking had a goddamn canary right there in the fucking thing. If we would have had 10 minutes of just Han Solo and fucking Chewbacca Wookieing it up like they were in a holiday fucking special, I would have lost my fucking mind.
Hey, but at least they gave Han subtitles when he spoke Wookiee.
Listen, so. God, makes my fucking brain itch just fucking thinking about it. I think it was it was one of those things like, fuck, this is a Wookiee. Let me just, I know I can speak some Wookiee. Let me just talk to him, and maybe we can figure something the fuck out, in that moment. I didn't have a problem with it. Okay. I think we knew the Wookiees had been enslaved. We talked about it all the way through Aftermath. We're talking way down the line in the timeline.
Yeah, so, decades.
Yeah, so the fact that the Imperials had one just for they probably used them for manual labor and, kept them in this pit. You hear the troopers that were standing on top of the pit were like, yeah, we haven't fed them in 3 days. And, so they were using it for entertainment. And the coincidence of Han being able to speak Wookiee, and you're just going to have to take that on faith and as a matter of that's just part of the movie.
It was the Force.
Yeah.
So it was not long after this where he finally runs into Beckett, who is played by Woody Harrelson. He was in this movie a lot.
Well, he ran into Beckett before that. That's why he ended up in the pit with Chewbacca.
Right. I'm not trying to retell the whole fucking story here. I'm just saying he eventually runs into Beckett. And my question for you is, how did you feel about Woody Harrelson? Because it's fucking Woody Harrelson in a major portion of a Star Wars movie. Did it work for you?
Here's my problem with the Woody Harrelson character. His fucking hair. Why? Why have the fucking, like, you're almost balding, let's have this big flop of hair come over and be distracting. I don't know if it's now maybe it was Last Jedi. Now I'm sensitive to fucking like weird hair.
It could be.
Like fucking, he could have had a shaved head. He could have had anything. Like, but instead he decided to have this like almost baldness with this fucking flop over. We get it. You're fucking old. Whatever. Yeah. And then you got fucking Downtown Julie Brown, his fucking girlfriend, like playing with his hair and shit like that. It was fucking distracting. Yeah. Other than that, I had no issues with Woody Harrelson whatsoever. It was not Hunger Games Woody Harrelson, which was what I was kind of afraid of. Like when he was initially shown as a cast member in this, like I'm like, this is going to be fucking Hunger Games. It's not going to be White Man Can't Jump fucking Woody Harrelson. It's going to be fucking Hunger Games Woody Harrelson, and he's going to be like drunk, and it's going to be like this fucking off-putting character. That's what I was worried about. I think they showed him as a leader and as an emotional guy. Yeah. And I think it was effective. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy. Like who's the guy who plays
what's his name's dad?
Shit.
Kurt Russell.
Is it Kurt Russell? Okay, yeah. It kind of reminded me of that. And so I was fine with it. Aside from the hair, I was fine with Woody Harrelson as Beckett.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a problem. It wasn't until towards the end of the movie where it finally dawned on me as I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, yeah, we've seen a lot of Woody Harrelson in this movie, and it has not been distracting. So that's good.
Except for the hair.
Yeah. I really actually did like his girlfriend, Val, though right. she met her end early on in the movie. But I liked her character. I liked the way she sacrificed herself for the job later on down the road. I really enjoyed her character. And who was the four-armed guy, the little guy that was their pilot? I can't remember.
I can't remember the name of the alien.
Yeah. I liked him, even though he had a lot of silly dialogue. I thought he was funny. Kristen fucking hated him. She like despises that character. So
really?
I'm like, I don't see it. Like he's not Jar Jar or anything. I thought he was mildly entertaining.
I didn't have a problem with it. And honestly, like I think again now we have so much Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really break it down, like I think I learned a lot from watching Empire Strikes Back so recently before watching this, and that I don't have a problem with a particular alien species or whatever interjecting itself into the plot line and being a part of it. It's way easier to do now because CGI is so fucking good. That character can do, you can do whatever the fuck you want now. You know, we could say the same thing with L3. And I don't think anybody would tell you that L3 was off-putting at all. But I really think that that's one of those things where, you know, you're either going to love it, that character, you're going to hate it because of whatever. It was a Star Wars character to me. It was another alien. It was kind of an alien introduction. He was disguised as one of the mud trooper that Han noticed, like, yeah, I saw you take, you know, a couple of your arms to pull up your fucking pants.
Yeah.
So I wish I could remember what the name of the fucking alien was, but anyway, the whole crew, I think, was, you know, going into that, and they wanted a particular thing, and they fucking stole uniforms to fucking get there, and the interaction with Beckett, with the lieutenant, and fucking getting Han into the fucking thing with the, I thought all that was good. I thought it was all well written and well put together. It's, you know, it's one of those things I'm having a tough time, you know, as we're talking about it, I'm having a tough time finding the parts where I was like really like kind of up, you know, like,
yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the way it was for me. Yeah, that was the way it was for me for most.
Actually, I do know that the first part that really fucking bothered me, or one of the few, is the fucking shower scene with Han and Chewie. Was that fucking necessary? Like, all right, I get it. You're fucking like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that scene? Like, who was that scene for?
Yeah, it is kind of unnecessary at that point. Like,
all right, you see fucking Han's feet. He's washing off all this fucking mud, which I'm sure, you know, was like whatever. And the fact that this ship had a fucking shower in it is kind of weird.
And a shower that big.
Yeah, exactly. It's whatever they were, however that worked out. You know, maybe it was a cattle car and it was just that kind of fucking cleaning area. Who the fuck knows?
Sure.
But we're not here to get into the spaceship ship. But the fact that like Chewbacca and him were in the shower together, and he makes the, you know, I think the only reason they put this scene in there is because they wanted him to have that line. It's like, you know, you really need to do this together, or whatever the line was. That was a throwaway fucking scene. One of the few, I think. There's probably more. But
all right, we need to keep this moving because of time restrictions, and we have to talk about Lando and L3. Okay. So, who do you want to start with?
We're gonna skip over the Cloud Riders for now.
We'll come back to the greater details in part 2, but for now, let's get initial impressions, especially of the different characters.
We're gonna skip over Dryden Voss for now.
We can talk about him if we have time, but yeah, let's talk about Lando and L3 because they were two pretty important characters in this movie.
Okay, Lando was fucking great. Donald Glover did a great job. Yeah. I think I watched it again today, and knocking my phone all over the place. Watching it again today, and sidebar. Somebody was who was it? Somebody was saying there should be a drinking game with like my hand motions.
Oh, I missed that.
It came up somewhere, like because I moved my hands around so much. For the listening audience, you're not getting any of this, but my fucking hands fly around. I talk with my hands. I'm not even.
That was one of the first things I ever noticed about you, by the way, after we first met like 10 years ago, was he uses his hands a lot when he talks.
Yeah.
You know?
Even when I was teaching a class or something, I'd have my fucking hands would be going all over the place. Anyway, Lando was fucking great. The initial pan in when he's at the card table and he's talking, I think I said it in the other our little mini app, but it sounds like Billy D. Williams.
Exactly like him,
as they're panning in. And then when you get to the card table, it's Donald Glover being Lando.
Yes.
And I think we said it before, Donald Glover specifically said, this is not going to be me doing an impression of Billy D. Williams or Lando. This is my interpretation of the character.
Yeah.
And
but it was still great.
he did a great fucking job.
Yeah.
I found very, very few things that I could say were even. I can't really fault anything that they did with Lando in this. I can't. So I'd love to talk to somebody who's disappointed in Donald Glover's performance as Lando, because I'm really, I must have missed something, because I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic. Like, and everything about his character throughout, like all of his appearances, with his wardrobe and the way he interacts with some of the other characters, it was all good. It was,
well, it made like the whole thing with how the Falcon was done up, and it was so clean inside. And you see that his quarters, you know, and you get the cape room, and you get the scene with Kira and Han in the cape room. Like, and she makes the comment, like, you know, it's like, it's a lot of capes, and she's like, maybe too many capes.
yeah.
You know, that I thought it was a funny bit of dialogue.
But that fits his character, though.
Sidebar on Kira. So we have it later in the notes when we kind of talk about when we put some talking points, but there was a lot of people, and I know Walter spoke of it in his podcast, and I've heard other people mention it, that Emilia Clarke, I guess they were unhappy with her acting. You know, she's very flat as far as the acting goes. I'm not a Game of Thrones guy. I'm putting it out there right now, so I don't have any real basis to compare her to other bodies of work that she's done.
You got the body part right.
Yeah, she's definitely attractive. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, but from an acting perspective, and for people that are saying like her acting was very flat, I struggle to see like where in this character she's playing in a movie where she should be more like boisterous, or what are you expecting out of the character that she's not performing?
Right. And I think you see a change in her character too, from where she is in the beginning.
Right.
She seems to be a lot more peppy, have a lot more emotions. But then when we catch up with her 3 years down the road, something's changed, something's different with her. And I think people are misinterpreting that change in her actual character as bad acting. I don't know. The stuff the stuff she did with Voss, and you know, talking through the whole scenario, and like she obviously still has feelings for Han, and like, but she's hiding it well, or trying to. I mean, I think maybe some of the overtness, you know, was there for the movie, not necessarily because of bad acting. Yeah. No, I think it's part of the character. So I didn't notice any bad acting when I was watching it.
Anyway, let's get back to Lando, but I just wanted to mention that with the Kira thing. Like, me personally, as somebody who doesn't really follow her as for her body of work, you know, from Game of Thrones or anything else, I thought her acting performance was fine.
Yeah.
You know, was it Oscar worthy? Like, this was a character that had that played a role in the movie. So
yeah, and as somebody who has seen all of her body of work, I think she did just fine. So, but yeah, I agree with everything you've said about Lando. I think he was played perfectly by Donald Glover. Everything fit his character all the way up to the end when he was super pissed at Han for fucking up the Falcon. Oh, man, and then just bailing.
That was a great shot when they do the Falcon lands. They get the shit out, and Lando and Han are standing there. That was like he did just a pissed off look on his fucking face. He's got his arm in like a made up sling with his fucking scarf. He's still wearing that yellow shirt. And he's just like, I hate you.
Yeah.
and I don't know if he caught it, but Han says, I know.
I missed that.
No, it was great. It was fucking great. And I noticed it today. I can't say that I saw it before, but Big Love, shout out to Big Lovin', who popped into the chat just to he's in the process of moving, had to stop in for a second. He says Solo rocked, and then later. So shout out to Big Lovin'.
Yep.
Good luck with your move. So yeah, I just thought that was a great. When you watch it again, look for it, because
I need to watch for that.
It's a great moment in the movie.
Yeah.
And then and then Lando walking off to the ship, and perfectly timed, he fucking flies away. Like, you know what? Fuck my cut. Fuck everything else. I'm out.
Yep.
And he fucking takes off.
Not surprising to anybody.
Mm-mm.
Now, L3. L3 was probably the biggest surprise for me because going into this, and I said this a little bit on our exclusive YouTube video the other day, but I was fully expecting to hate L3. I heard this was like the SJW droid that was going to be all about like equality and droid rights and blah, 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 all this other shit. I'm like, ah, fuck.
But she was. She was.
But it was done in more of a tongue-in-cheek way. It was done in a very not serious way. It was not fucking preachy or anything like that. It wasn't just like, we're going to throw in our left-wing politics and put it all up in your face. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was fun the way they portrayed L3. And I really enjoyed that character a lot.
It was fun. It was reminiscent of K2SO in Rogue One, you know, where you had this comedic element to the droid, which we've had in all our main droid characters. You know, there's this little comedic element, whether it's R2's interaction with 3PO or what 3PO does and says, whatever. So it wasn't off-putting at all. There's some of the dialogue, like the dialogue with L3 and Kira.
That was one of the best scenes of the fucking movie. It was so funny. Like, that whole exchange between the two of them.
Kira's like, well, how does that work? And then L3's like, it works. Yeah. It was just a great interaction there. Probably my favorite interaction was between Lando and her when he's getting out of the cockpit and he says, you know, I'm going back to do whatever, you know, do you need anything? And she's like, equal rights? And he's like, he just stands there in the doorway, just shakes his head and fucking walks away. So it was just fucking great. And she like flips the switch and fucking leans into the chair. It's just a great great droid, you know, interactivity on there. I was really impressed. Side note on that, I know a lot of people were speculating that was Phasma's voice.
It sounded just like her, and I mentioned that in the trailers.
Yeah,
even my kids said that afterwards. They're like, "Was that the Phasma voice?"
No, it wasn't. It was Phoebe. Her name was Phoebe something, some British actress who did a lot of work.
IMDb.
Yeah, so she did a lot of work in Britain, but she played
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah, she played the character very, very well. I love that. Excuse me. It's a shame. You know, like you said, it was all tongue in cheek. You taking the restraining bolts off of the other droids and letting them release, and the gonk droid fucking gonk hitting the fucking computer terminals with like it looks like a Burger King tray. It's like gonk.
Yeah, so that was good.
I think somebody said in the chat, in the chat the other day, it was like, you know, they did a great job of making a gonk droid funny.
Yeah, and Bronco Fett says Clint Howard's character is the Michael Vick of droids. It took me a second, but I'm like, oh,
that's fucking funny.
Yeah, we can get into details on that next episode because we got to keep this one rolling.
And one last thing about L3, I think what they did with like her character basically getting killed, and inserting her programming into the Falcon's computer, I think it's one thing about this movie is that I think people complain that they tried to close up all the story, like all of Han Solo's backstory. They tried to close up in this 2 hour and 15 minutes.
And that was something I was worried about going into this.
And they kind of did it, but they did it in a way where it wasn't just like shoehorned in there. I think like
they pulled it off. They made it believable.
Yeah. Something that like they had a whole novel for the Millennium Falcon, and it talks about like this is Legends material, and it talked about like how different the computer was, and there was an incident or whatever. I think this is a way to validate how C-3PO talks about this computer has a very peculiar dialogue. You know, in Empire Strikes Back, it makes a good connection there because it's L3 is basically now part of the Navicomputer and part of the Falcon. So, and obviously her personality and how she interacted she's going to interact differently with the droids. And I just thought it was a good connection. I loved. We didn't even we haven't even started talking about the fucking Kessel Run yet.
Yeah.
We gotta fucking pause and then get into that, or like where are we at?
Maybe we should save that for next week because we're already over an hour.
I want to talk about it now.
All right. But this will be the last thing then. And then next week we'll talk about like the villains and some other stuff.
The fucking Kessel Run was fantastic. you wondered how they were going to do that. Like, there's all this question, as you know, in the anybody who talks about Star Wars, like, you know, the parsec being a distance and not time.
Yes.
And so taking the shortcut and then navigating through the thing and the big alien thing, I don't think I needed that. Somebody in that Easter egg YouTube video made a connection with Abeloth in one of the Legends material. I didn't make that connection. I just think it was a little bit extraneous.
I'm posing for the chat. That's all. Just
oh, nice. Why the shirt, babes?
Yeah,
oh, that's for my wife.
Shit about my shirt on the in the chat, so I got to make sure I show it off nice and good.
Yeah, thanks. Sure, my wife appreciates that. Yeah, I just think that the Kessel Run, the fucking music was great. You know, we didn't talk about the score at all, but the music that they incorporate into it, the John Powell guy did a fucking great job. I was listening to the soundtrack independently of everything else, and I think John Powell did a great job of incorporating John Williams' energy into those scenes, and it sounded. I'll tell you what, if you listen to the soundtrack and you watch the movie again, some of the stuff is going to feel like Indiana Jones. You're going to get like an Indiana Jones feeling to some of the tempo of it. And when it wasn't, I didn't really realize it until I listened to the soundtrack and I watched the movie again. I'm like, oh, hey, that kind of has like an Indiana Jones feel to it. Yeah. But it's still you're channeling John Williams for that. And it gives me hope as I sit here and pray to the maker that he could. That's a potential a guy who could be the heir apparent to John Williams, to be able to make good Star Wars, just that orchestral Star Wars music that we love and has to be part of this movie. Any Star Wars movie that's made has to have this element to it, or else it's not Star Wars. It's just not.
Yep. So, all right. So we're going to pause our discussion about the Solo movie itself and finish up next week. But if you didn't catch our feelings on it, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Not 100% sure where it falls in the ranking yet. I have to see it a second and third time. But overall, very positive reaction from me on that. And obviously from you as well.
Yeah. Go see it again. Go see it again. What we're getting ready to talk about right now, for the purposes of closing out this week's episode, is we're going to talk about the box office number, because I know that that's a big point of contention with the where a lot of people say that the movie itself fell short because of the numbers.
Yeah, and it's important because this could affect the Star Wars universe down the line, depending on the overall fallout of this. But as we've kind of alluded to, Solo missed the mark box office wise. They were predicting it was going to pull in like 130 million over the 4-day weekend, and instead it pulled in basically 100. Even worse is that it really didn't do very well internationally. They were expecting a much bigger opening internationally, and it only ended up making like 65 million between all the different overseas territories. So ultimately right now, depending on what kind of a week 2 drop-off we have with Solo, this could be considered a flop. It could lose money overall for Disney and Lucasfilm because of the budget, because of having to practically reshoot most of the movie, changing directors, and then all the marketing and shit that goes into blockbuster movies like this. It could end up losing money, at least for its theatrical run. It'll make it up with fucking Blu-ray sales and all that shit.
Listen, I think... my gut impression is that this is a movie that I think a lot of people are kind of waiting to hear what other people say about it before they go see it. And it's not going to get huge numbers. Disney knew this. This was a prediction that came out months ago. We talked about it on a podcast months ago, that Disney was prepared for a flop. The fact that it was Memorial Day weekend and they get the extra days, and if you listen to the Walter Whitgos and the other naysayers about this movie, and they deliberately are trying to inflate the numbers to make Solo seem like it's a better movie. I think there's a lot of people that were kind of holding their breath. So much shit came out in the past 4 fucking weeks.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2 came out. When?
Avengers Well, Deadpool 2 was last week. Was 1 week before.
Yeah, it
Solo.
was a week before Solo.
Yeah.
The Avengers movie, which is now the biggest fucking movie ever to come out ever, was several weeks before that. You were competing in this market because you decided that this Memorial Day release was going to happen.
Yeah.
Now you're competing against all this other stuff. I think Disney was prepared for these numbers. I think that what I think, me personally, just because I like the movie and I had low expectations going into it and I enjoyed the movie, even on second viewing, that I think you'll get people that have been, well, let me see what people are talking about.
Yeah.
If they're smart, for the next several weeks, it's all over social media still. Like the Solo stuff they're still pushing. Go see Solo. Mm-hmm. I think they'll make up some numbers. Are they going to be the best thing that comes out? It's the #1 movie right now.
Sure.
Because it overtook Deadpool and those guys. It's still fucking. It's still carrying Star Wars weight.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's got 1 week of no other competition until Incredibles 2 comes out.
It's still June 15th that comes out. And Disney's gonna make a fucking fortune on that. So I don't think Disney's really worried about Solo right now. I think at the end of the day, as Star Wars fans, I look at this movie and go, there's some interesting stuff to talk about, which we'll talk more about next week. It didn't suck. And I went and I spent, well, actually Jason treated, thank you for
happy retirement.
Yeah, thank you. For us to see it on Friday night, and I paid matinee prices to see it this morning, and I might even see it again. I really enjoyed it. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Deadpool yet, and I won't see Avengers. I don't give a fuck about Avengers, people. I don't care. I'd rather watch. I'm looking forward to watching Solo again. I'm looking forward to The Incredibles coming out. I think it's going to be a lot of fucking fun. And there was even like that latest Mission Impossible that's coming out looks like it's going to be pretty good. I'm going to see that before I see fucking Avengers. Sorry, Disney, you get enough of my fucking money.
That is true. But yeah, for me, I think you're correct about the packed schedule right now for all of these movie releases, really working against Solo. And I think this opening weekend might also be a small referendum on The Last Jedi as well, because it soured a lot of people. And it made a lot of people think, do I really want to fucking go see this thing opening weekend when the last one was kind of shit? And, and maybe they're waiting. So the hope is that it has a strong second week, because this second week is going to make or break whether or not this movie is going to be considered a box office success or not. And hopefully it gets good word of mouth, and hopefully more people go and see it and help it break even and even make a profit.
But honestly, I don't, like I said, at the end of the day, who cares? Really, what it comes down to,
it matters, because like if it flops, then it's going to make Disney and Lucasfilm rethink their whole slate for.
I don't think so. I think that Disney was prepared for knowing the marketing strategy that they decided to play into this movie, knowing when it was released, knowing that they have so much other stuff going on. I truly believe that the news that was floating around, the rumors out there, that they were prepared for this to flop. They're going to make, like you said, people are going to watch it. They're going to, and if it'll go to video probably faster, so they'll get the digital downloads, they'll get the deleted scenes and all those stuff. People are going to buy they're going to make their money on this movie. They already have. The Star Wars train is rolling at full pace right now, regardless of what Solo did. If Solo's not going to derail anything that they're doing. They have the only thing that is really going to do it may, after having to go and give Lord and Miller and remove them from a movie and give Ron Howard the reins to something. If the only thing that may do is it may prompt them to go, like, we need to make sure we're putting the right people into writing the right stories. Having Kasdan be involved in this fucking screenplay is probably one of the best things that could have possibly happened.
Yeah, yeah. The script was good. I really enjoyed the screenplay and
like I said, I watched Empire Strikes Back and then went into this movie, and we didn't even talk about how like the guy who played Solo, he's not Solo. I can't forgive that at all. Like he doesn't portray Solo, but I'm willing to ignore that because it's, at least in the portrayal in the movie, it was, I don't know. I can't even describe it. Like
it was passable for me. It was just passable.
Yeah,
I wasn't blown away by his performance.
I would have, you know what would have even been better? Like put a fucking green, like put the dots on the guy and try and solo him up a little bit. I mean, they tried. They tried to fucking find a guy who's going to be like have this suaveness and everything else. And let's face it, I don't think that would have been Ron. If Ron Howard was doing it, do you think that would have been fucking their selection for Han Solo?
Yeah, possibly not.
Probably not.
Yeah, because he was selected long before Ron Howard became part of this.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said by that. But anyway, as far as the numbers go, let's wait and see what happens when we're talking about it next week. Let's see what the numbers and how that stuff turns out and see what the ratings are. I think the ratings are still moderate. You know, they're not like the people that said they were going to go in there and fucking ratings bomb this movie, and they weren't successful.
No, because it's got a better like Rotten Tomatoes fan score than even The Last Jedi did. So more people liked Solo than Last Jedi. I think,
and people probably went into it and were surprised that, kind of like we were, like, wow, I enjoyed that. Yeah, that was a good movie.
So next week we'll finish up our discussion on the movie itself. There was a whole bunch of stuff we kind of glossed over. Like we didn't even talk about the Maul cameo really. So we'll have to go into deeper detail about that.
Yep.
Talk about the villain who we didn't even mention. What the fuck is his name? Drayden Voss.
Voss. Yeah.
Is that how you say that? Yeah. And then the whole Crimson Dawn and all that shit. So we'll cover all that stuff next week.
There's a lot more to talk about it. And plus we give Jason a chance to watch the movie again. Everybody gets a chance to see the movie again if they already haven't. I know Bronco Fett's seen it twice already. I've seen it twice. I'll probably go and see it again before we tape next week. If I get my homework done, maybe I'll treat myself to another matinee. But yeah, it's an enjoyable movie. Go see it. Where we have timing?
We're getting close to the end. So with that, I know you had a couple other things you wanted to add before we close up.
Yeah. So big thing is the only fucking person that's ordered anything off of our Teespring store is me. Not even you, Jason. Not even you. I'm looking at you.
I was busy this weekend. Traveling and
while you're sitting in the fucking airport twiddling your thumbs and texting me, you could have been in the Teespring store buying yourself a tank top to replace that shit one that you're wearing right now.
This shirt is amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
So go to teespring.com/stores/all-things-SW-pod, and that's our storefront. And I know Bronco Fett was talking about the colors. You can get stuff in white or in heather gray. I'm a heather gray guy. I like that color. The way that the logo transfers onto other colors, it kind of it washes it out. So I'll need to do more work and some photoshopping and whatever to make that better. And unfortunately, Teespring, you get like, okay, here's your design. You can put it on all these clothes, but it's going to be the same design. So, but it's a nice T-shirt. It's nice and soft. I'm not wearing that. I'm wearing the old one right now.
Yeah, the canceled version.
But go to the store, support the podcast. You can get stickers of the logo. You can put that on your water bottle or the side of your car or whatever. Go to teespring.com/stores/all-things-SW-pod. The link will be in the show notes. Do that. Follow us on our rest of our social media, All Things Star Wars Pod, and all that good stuff. You know the social media. You can go to All Things SW Pod or All Things Star Wars Pod to get to our Facebook group. You want to see some of the behind the scenes stuff with carrots and other things. Join our private group. It's pretty entertaining. There's some fun stuff that goes on in there that we don't necessarily need the public to see. And
it's a lot of ball busting, mostly directed at me.
Yes, which makes it amazing. Yes. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have a shout out to my daughter Kate. She's doing an internship with Berkshire Hathaway, and
what is that exactly?
That's a realtor group.
Okay.
You see it. They have like the purple signs at Berkshire.
Well, but that's only local, right? That's not like nationwide.
I think they're bigger. I think they might actually own Fox and Roach. I could be lying there. Anyway, she's interning for them. You know, she's going to Penn State. She's a telecommunications major, so she interned with them. And their project group, they worked on a podcast. It's called Carlos and Luis's Real Talk, and they're talking about you know, home buying and the market, you know, housing market and stuff like that. So, you know, my daughter's one of the producers of this podcast. It's on SoundCloud. You can go to, there'll be a link in the show notes, but https m.soundcloud.com/real-talk-44332671.
And we'll put a link to that in the show description.
No, I want you to remember that. You should have been writing it down.
No, it's in the fucking notes.
It'll be in the show notes. So
I don't know who Stupid Videos is, but they just
sorry I'm late, Mr. President. And then we've got a lot of
carrots.
We got a lot of carrots. It's Bronco Fist's brother.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah. Anyway, go support my daughter and her intern group with the podcast they're working on for her show, and that's that.
Yep. And then I'll just close by saying fuck Forbes. If you want to know what I'm talking about, just Google Forbes and then Solo: A Star Wars Story. And the top hit that you're going to get is the reason why I say fuck Forbes magazine. Anybody who runs that stupid fucking outlet, they can all go suck a dick. So, Dave, with that, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. Oh, I got to click it.